Welcome to This Is Horror Podcast. This is part of the House of Bad Memories podcast weekend. And today we are going to be unboxing Funny Games, the 1997 version. But if you've seen the 2007 version, you're probably going to get a lot out of this as well because it is essentially a shot by shot remake from the same director, Michael Haneke. And joining myself and Bob, we have Mackenzie Kiera. How's it going, Mackenzie?
It's going, Michael. How are you guys?
Go. Yeah, it's going has been pretty much my answer to that for the last 3 years. It has been something. It has been quite the turbulent and tumultuous ride, and it was kind of been a period of my life that I never asked for, but the universe handed it to me anyway. And sometimes that's the way it goes.
Yeah, it's very true. It's been so long since I've spoken with you guys, but it still feels absolutely natural to be sitting here with you both. So it's really wonderful, and thanks for having me on. It's really great to be back.
Yeah. It has been far too long, in fact. And I mean, I'm not sure how long it has been, but I feel a
2020.
couple of years at least. Yeah, 2020 is more than a couple of years. I'm not Paul Tremblay, but I can tell you that one. And so what have you been doing in that time? Because we spoke with you, I believe the last time was it for the They're Watching event?
I think it was for their watching, and then you guys were kind enough to have me on when my book dropped, which was August 2020. So I'm not sure where all of that lands, but I know that I spoke with you guys around there, and then yeah, and then with the launch of your book, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So we had August 2020 for the deep dive Mackenzie edition of
I
This Is
think.
Horror. And
Yeah,
then it was, October, Halloween
and that's
for
what we
They're
did.
Watching. So, goodness, what have been some of the biggest changes for you, both personally and professionally, in the last 3 years?
Um Honestly, it has been a lot of businesses. So my husband, during he was one of the folks that was kind of sent home during COVID, during the lockdown. And so when everything kind of started to open back up, he said to me, I hated my job. I don't want to go back. I said, okay, what's your plan? He's like, I think I want to open up like a car business. And that's what he has done. He has this whole business, where we have he details cars, he washes cars. um,
Okay, we've got a video interruption at the moment, but this is live. This is the live House of Bad Memories podcast weekend, and they say that, no
I'm so
talking is dead air. So, Mackenzie, I am filling the silence with absolute nonsense.
I am so sorry. I am here. It is. Can you hear me again?
I can hear
It
you
is.
again.
I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. It's 6:30 my time, and so one of the neighbor kids just ran over to come and ask my son if they could play, and I knew that the dogs were all going to go off, and so I just wanted to shout out my window, like, I'm podcasting right now. So
As long as the neighbors weren't coming over and asking if they could borrow 4 eggs, then I think
right?
we're all right.
That's very fitting. Oh,
It's like there's a neighbor who wants 4 eggs. He's kind of dressed for yachting. It's like, "No, Mackenzie, do not
she's
engage."
she's like dressed for yoga, but maybe she wants some eggs too. I mean, we could bring her on for effect, just
Yeah,
with
I
the
mean, yoga and yachting,
eggs.
they
Yoga and
both begin with
yachting.
Y, so there's a thin line, but, but back to your husband's car business.
Sorry. But yeah, so he opened that, and that became kind of consuming. Um, And I started up my own business here at home, which has been just editing. And so now here I am editing books. I edit short stories, query letters, synopsis, really anything with words on it. I have 2 book coaching clients at the moment. So that's kind of what I end up doing as a creative outlet, because all day it's either go, go, go with my husband's new business or with my full time job, because I'm a professor at a university also. And so that's kind of what I have been up to. It has been 2 years now, knock on wood, in December, and it's been going great. I'm really happy with it. It's something that I really started doing kind of at the tail end of graduate school and at the beginning of Ladies of the Fright, I want to say. And it took me a long time to realize that while I loved like the people that I was working with, it was the people and the book. I really love being in books. And so the more books people were able to give me to kind of work with, the better I felt. And so after doing just some beta reading and some developmental edits for friends, I kind of closed the gap and was like, I think it's a business now. So that's what it's become. It has really taken on it's an animal.
Yeah.
It's got wheels and everything. So it's been so much fun and I love it.
Yeah, and if people are listening and they thought they were coming here for the funny games analysis, but they're like, God damn it, I've got a story or a novel that needs editing. Are you open for new clients?
Right now, I am, but it's a little bit strict as I can only take kind of one large project a month. So it really
Mm,
does depend on how quickly you need it done. As of right now, like I said, I have the 2 book coaching clients, so it is tough. It's like I can really only take on one other book at a time. But if you've got a short story, hit me. I do all of it. I do line editing, I do copy editing, I do developmental editing. We can even just have a talk about
okay.
it.
And how can they get in touch?
With mackenziekieraedits.com. And my email is also how I tend to respond to things. That's mackenziekiera22@gmail.com. Thanks, Michael.
Oh, yeah, no worries. And
Appreciate the lead in.
let's hope that the bots don't scrape that email, because
Mm,
you know you'll be able to tell if it's a bot or a real human
yeah.
contacting you about edits. And if it's a human and you think it's a bot, then that's probably an editorial project that will require too much work. So never mind. But I mean, yeah, you've beta read a number of things for Bob and and I mean, I've said before, but I mean, your feedback, it's precise, it's at times brutal, but like at the same time, it almost sounds like a paradox. It's like you're brutal, but you're also like kind and understanding. So it's like the perfect combination. So I mean,
Thank you.
Mackenzie will not bullshit you with her feedback, but at the same time, it's like she's not going to kind of leave you in that hole not knowing how to get out. She might even reach your hand out if you're lucky. So, you know, if you've got a story that needs editing and you think Mackenzie would be a good fit, and why on earth would she not, then get in touch.
Thank you.
Okay, well, not even like a sponsored or kind of advertising part of the show.
Right.
That's just how that goes. But I mean, you said that you're a professor at the university. So what
Yeah.
does that entail at the moment? What subject are you a professor in?
It's professional communications. And so I kind of run a department. It's tricky because it's an online university. And so I help run a department where we look at students writing. And the reason why that's really important right now is because we have a lot of students who are multi-language learners. And these are things that where AI really can't help us out very much, because as of right now, AI can't tell the difference between a multi-language learner and someone who's frankly using something to cheat. And so it really does take human eyes to figure out which students need the most help. So it's sort of like a glorified writing center, if you will.
Yeah, and are you doing that? kind of full time
It
as
is
well?
100% full time. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is 100% full time. So yeah, the business is at night, and then for pure joy, I'm back to subbing at preschool. That is for my joy. I was in the house too much, and so now I'm with little kids again a couple days a week, and I love it.
I'm just wondering, like, logistically,
I don't sleep.
how are you subbing at preschool? It's like you got two full-time jobs. Where is this time? Have you unlocked a way to turn 24 hours into 30? When does that fit
I
in?
have, yeah. No,
Oh,
I
here
don't
we go.
sleep. Yeah, I just don't sleep, and that works out okay. Um, honestly, I've always been happiest when I have a lot of different things going on, and I, as a person, feel more comfortable if all of my money isn't coming from just one job.
Yeah.
I feel better, especially in just today's world, if it's like, oh, a little
Mm,
comes from here, and then the chunk comes from here, and then a little bit more comes from over here. That just makes me feel better, and I genuinely like being around people. And with the online university where I'm working with the department, our interaction with students is very limited. We don't really get to form a bond with our students. And that is something that I'd really missed. It was a great job while my son was tiny and at home with me, but he's bigger. He's in transitional kindergarten right now. And so it's like, okay, it's time for me to go and find those human bonds again.
mm. Yeah, yeah. And where does your writing fit into all of this? Are you still writing?
You're going to laugh at me. I write at the gym. So like I'll go to the gym to work out and then I'll work out for like 45 minutes and then I'll take like a half hour to pump out some words. And that's how I've just time managed, Michael. It's okay. Like you look
Yeah.
concerned.
No, when when you said I was gonna laugh, I thought maybe, you were gonna be like between sets, maybe you take like a kind of
Right
five
now.
minute break and it's like then you write a scene, then you do another set. I mean that to me that would be pretty efficient actually.
Right?
But
No, I'm somehow managing to like it's a juggling act, but I'm somehow managing to do all of it. I think I don't think I'm letting anyone down. If they are, they'll come after me. But yeah, I wrote since my other book's release, I wrote another book that no one seems to like except me, and so that's all right. So I'm working on something else. I just had a short story published at over at the Kelp, and it's a story where babies aren't born, they kind of become, and they become from the mother's heart. So the hearts get taken out of the mother's bodies, and we watch the baby kind of start to come from the heart. But of
mm,
course, it needs a sacrifice of
of
blood.
course it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a rip on Little Shop of Horrors plus Night Bitch. Did you guys read Night Bitch? That was good.
No, no, I've heard of it because how do you see that title and not
And
remember it? But I haven't read it, so I guess that is a recommendation.
it is solidly. It's so good.
Okay, well, I'll read it soon. Not right now, or that would be uninteresting for people watching, and even more uninteresting for people listening. But yeah, Night Bitch.
It's a good one.
All
Yeah.
right.
Rachel Yoder,
Um,
I think. I think I'm getting the name right. It's been a long time since I looked at it, but yeah, Rachel Yoder.
Yeah, and you said that you wrote another book, but nobody seems to be into it but
No,
you. But what one theme and something that we've repeated throughout this weekend because it just seems to keep coming up. But I find like you win at writing if you have joy in the pursuit of writing. So if you enjoyed it at the moment that you were doing it, then you already won. Now, of course, we hope that some people will like it, and I'm sure that there is an audience for it, but you just haven't found that audience yet. But even if we wrote something and it doesn't get published, it doesn't have an audience. If we enjoyed the pursuit of writing, the act of doing it, then we won anyway. Everything else is a bonus.
absolutely. I agree with that so much because I I was in a place where I needed to write that book desperately. I think I wrote that book just at the tail end of the lockdown. And so, just like deep depression. And so that kind of came out of like a really good place artistically, of where you just are sort of like barfing out all of the emotions and getting rid of it all. And so maybe that's why no one likes the book but me. Um,
And like in terms of nobody liking it, like who has seen it? I mean, you don't have to specifically name them, but I mean, like,
Got
is
a
it
lot of
beta readers? Is
rejections.
it publishers? Is it editors?
No, no, no. Readers all seemed to genuinely like it, had very little for me to fix, which is always the confusing thing. So no, I publishers specifically did not like it. They wanted massive changes, and I just didn't want to like. And that's part of my own issue. Is like I was like, nah, I have a vision for this, and maybe it'll be famous when I'm dead. So I'm gonna hold on to it for a little bit, and that is why you can't edit your own work, because you end up like this.
Yeah, I mean, when I get feedback on work, like I decide, okay, what do I want to listen to, and what do I feel like, no, that goes against my vision or against the idea that I had for the story. So I think, like, you know part of being a writer is almost curating the feedback that you get. So, I mean, at the moment, I've sent my story Daddy's Boy, which I'm pitching as kind of Greasy Strangler meets a Joe R. Lansdale heist novel, as if told in Guy Ritchie's Incompetent Britain. And I've got like a variety of feedback. And like, I think the more an issue comes up, the more it's like, okay, well, that might be something worth paying attention to. But then I also have to look at, like, well, who's the audience for this book, or what is it that I wanted to do with it? Because this one it's definitely my most comedic book. So I think there are some people who they gravitate more towards like dark horror, and just like the comedic spicing, as it were, is too much for them. And then it's like, well, do I want to rein that in a little bit and make it, I guess, tonally more similar to like House of Bad Memories, which seems to be getting like a really good reception at the moment? Or do I just want it to be a comedic book? And then, like, yeah, I've got that kind of dilemma. And I mean, the answer at the moment is like, I'll rein it in a little bit, but it's still going to be the most comedic one. And yeah, I think it's just curating that feedback, deciding what works for you, what doesn't. Again, something that I've tried out this weekend is like Neil Gaiman's advice, which I think is like hugely vital. If somebody tells you a problem that needs to be fixed, then listen to them. If they tell you how to fix it, then don't. And I mean, this is all a rather long-winded way of, saying, if you believe in that novel, that book, and the vision, and you're happy with it, I would consider, if you can't find a press, I would seriously look at, like, well, do you want to independently put this out? Because if it's a story you believe in and you like, and as like I said when I was talking to Josh Malaman, the thing is, because I know that writing is a lifelong pursuit, it's liberating in a way, because like I don't even care that much if I put a book out and people don't like that one, or it's not considered a success, because
Yeah.
it's like, oh well, there's another 20 stories coming
Yeah.
in the next decade, let's say.
Exactly. And I think that's the exact right place to be in. Just, spiritually with writing is like, oh, you didn't like this one? Okay, well, hold on. Let me just get the rest out of here real quick. And do you like any of these? Because if the story wants to come out, it has to come out. And if sometimes it's just going to be for you. Um, and that's like kind of the good and the bad truth. It's like, do it, absolutely, write it down. And if you are the only audience for that book, how did you feel writing it? And let's see what else you're going to write afterwards, because that's always the next step, right? It's like, this was a step, what's the
Yeah.
next one?
Yeah. So I mean, as I say, I think if you've got a load of readers that responded positively to it, then Yeah, just because it's like got some rejections, don't take that as this isn't going to be in the world. Like you get it in the world.
Oh
You
yeah,
drag it into the world if you have to,
it'll
kicking and
happen.
screaming.
Oh, it'll totally happen. Honestly, I'm really I'm waiting for its time. Um like it'll happen. I'm waiting for a little bit more of my time because as I'm saying, "Oh, I'm doing this and this and this and this." Truly I have run out of space in my brain to be like, okay, now I'm going to self-publish this book. How am I going to do that? It's like that's too many. That's too much, and so it is on the back burner. It does have to wait, but there are other things that I'll toss out into the world until that happens. Until I have a little more brain space for it.
All right. Well, let's jump into the unboxing of funny games.
Yeah.
And I mean, it used to be that with the unboxing that Bob and I would go through scene by scene, but recently we've kind of mixed it up a little bit, I suppose, because of like the time that it takes to go through every scene. So we are just going to jump around and we're going to see kind of what happens. But I like to talk about story lessons, takeaways, things we like, things we would perhaps change about it. But I think to begin with, I mean, I take it, Mackenzie, that this is the first time that you've watched Funny Games.
It is. Yeah, this was the first time for me. So it was a ride.
Yeah, yeah. Now, how about you, Bob? Was this the
Yeah, it
first
was.
time?
I watched it for the first time yesterday.
Oh,
Yeah.
Me too.
hmm Criterion
yeah.
channel. Yeah.
So this unboxing came about because I asked Mackenzie, do you want to unbox Funny Games or do you want to unbox This Is England? Because those are two of the comp titles for House of Bad Memories. So you see, we're we're like tenuously weaving that into the launch weekend. House of Bad Memories by Michael David Wilson. You can buy it now, Cemetery Gates Media. And you, I said to Mackenzie, if you want a kind of lighter watch, then Funny Games is probably the movie for you. I had not watched Funny Games in a very long time when I sent that email. And when I rewatched it, I thought, this is not as light as I remember it being. And I think the reason for that is there's another movie called Cheap Thrills that has Pat Healy in, and they've kind of got similar plots. And I think in my mind I'd melded Funny Games and Cheap Thrills together and imagined that Funny Games had the kind of lighter tone that Cheap Thrills does. It does not. Oh, so like This Is England or Funny Games, it was going to be a dark it was gonna be a dark watch. And I do wonder because the first time I watched Funny Games, I mean, I can't remember exactly when, but well over a decade ago, I wasn't a parent. And I do feel that, like, being a parent, it adds another kind of shocking dynamic to proceedings. I mean, I think we've said this before, but since being a parent, like, there are some films that I'm just so much more uncomfortable in. Um, whereas, like, before as like a teenager and then early 20s, I mean, I could almost watch anything and be pretty unaffected by it. But I guess like having a child or having a family, you've then got almost a reference point and you can empathize more. I feel generally as well, particularly if we're living in the right way, we get more empathetic as we get older anyway. So anyway, let's just jump into initial impressions. As you say, you've both watched it for the first time, so I don't even know if you like the film. So, Mackenzie, let's start with you. Just what now you have experienced Funny Games, how did you get on with it?
So it's really funny that you mentioned like being a little taken aback, like, oh no, I told her that this was going to be lighter. And I was, as you're watching, I'm like halfway through, and I'm just like, Michael, that's sick. Fuck, this isn't light. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Particularly that 12-minute scene that kind of makes the grief in Hereditary
oh my
look like a
god,
South Park gag. Yeah.
basically, yeah. So that was kind of my first take. Was I everything kind of like, we'll talk about this later too, but like going into it, I was thinking, okay, this is actually very Clockwork Orange to me, right? Just kind of the way that everyone is
Yeah.
dressed, like the general vibe, and the way that everyone is speaking. Like in Clockwork Orange, they have an entirely different dialect, but it had the same frivolity to it. You know, it
Yeah.
had the same like kind of like gaslighting frivolity to it, where this was someone's game, this was for someone's amusement. But then, kind of as we got a little more through it, I started to sort of think like, okay, there's something deeper going on here. Like, and that's why I got really excited. Like for the scene when I mean, I'll say it, like when he grabs the remote. That's the scene where
Yeah.
I thought, this is something different. Like now this is going to be so interesting to unbox. Because yeah, at first I was like, we're just going to unbox a different version of Clockwork Orange, but no, now it is its own beast. Anyway, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Bob. Go. I want to hear what Bob thinks.
I I wish I would have seen this movie when it first came out,
Yeah.
and I think that since I haven't seen it until yesterday, that my experience has been tempered by every other extreme type of film similar to this, and so it's really kind of hard to isolate it, especially compared to some of the stuff that we that we've had and that I've seen. It in a way it's like it's very easy to say this was tame. Uh, in 1997, I probably wouldn't have felt that. I probably would have said, "Hey, this was pretty extreme." Um, I immediately got the Kubrick vibe, like from opening scene. Opening scene reminded me of The Shining. Uh, the opening part of when they're traveling, going to the Overlook and all that. So I have a feeling that I don't know much about the director. I purposely did not read up anything on it. I wanted to kind of go into this discussion just from the experience of the film, but I could tell that there was definitely some Kubrick there. I didn't really latch on to the Clockwork Orange thing until I seen the two boys, the two gentlemen,
And the gloves.
and the gloves, and yeah, that substituting the golf club for the walking sticks. That the only thing that was missing was the bowler derbies, and of course the special speak that Alec and his druids do. Um, which it's been a long time since I read the book, which is a challenge. It is not. It's written in the dialect.
Michael would think it's light.
Yeah, but it's light fare. Yeah, but and it's and I mean, they have their own slang, milk bars, all this kind of stuff. So it's there wasn't anything really specialized in the language of Peter and Paul, uh, other than the game that they were playing. And so to me, I felt like there was a lot that was a lot of it was on the cuff, but a lot of it was under the cuff, and maybe I just didn't get it. The constant picking, calling. I guess I'm gonna probably get their names confused, but either Peter or Paul calling him Tubby. Uh,
Mm.
so it's like they've known each other for a while, and that's kind of like where I was like, okay, there's a backstory here that we're not seeing at all. Other than what we know on the surface is that it sounds like they've done this before. Just how they get their kicks off of it. With the exception of one scene, which I mean, listeners know we're going to about to spoil the fuck out of this.
For sure.
So just kind of, this is how we do these. But when Georgie Jr. dies, that that scene, it's the most violent scene in the whole movie. You don't see it, you hear it, you see the aftermath of it, and it just it took it to a different level. Uh, but it was to me, and I'm trying to put my words into something succinct, and it ain't gonna work. So, but the the whole concept behind it to me really didn't come into effect until that scene, and it's like this is violence for violence sake. And yes, they're showing you violence for violence sake, somewhat gratuitously, but that's the point of the whole film. Is basically this is showing how violence has pervaded cinema, and so it's pointless. Yeah, there's a backstory. Yeah, they've done this before. This is how they get their kicks, and there's not much more to it than that. And it's just the pointless of it. So there, to me, there's like that was the deeper meaning in the whole film, you know. And I'm pretty sure what little bit I've read, because I checked out something on Wikipedia about it, because I just want to see who the names of the stars. So you can't like avoid reading some stuff. But I mean, and we'll probably get more into this, because he basically remade the movie shot for shot. Is he wanted to examine that a decade later. He wanted to say, hey, what does violence look like now, 10 years later? What are we doing about it? You know, and he's not talking about violence in film. He's talking about violence in society. So this is not, a critique of, hey, there's too much violence in film. It's a critique on us. It's a critique on we're too violent of a species. And so to me, that's the deeper subtext. Um, it was I felt it was a good film. Initially, after I watched it, my thoughts were I didn't like it, but I haven't stopped thinking about it. So apparently, I like something about it. So I have to be honest that if it's compared to other things, if I sit there and continuously compare it to other things, then I'm gonna feel it's tame. But I'm starting to get and understand what the film actually does. If that makes any kind of sense. I know that was like a rambling, coherent. Bob's on a tangent and he pulling back in. But that was my initial impression.
Yeah, it makes so much sense, and you've literally given me about 20 points that I could then just like kind of jump off on. So I think, as is tradition, I'll start talking. You jump in when I hit on a point that you want to respond to. But I mean, for me, watching this, like as I say, over a decade later, I think I appreciated it in a way that I hadn't the first time. Like maybe I was too young and naive, but I realized what a really intelligent film this is. I mean, this is deconstructing the home invasion genre. Of course, there are numerous times when the fourth wall is broken. It's only ever broken by the character Paul. Everything is so deliberately done. And I mean, as we say, this is 97. So this also came out very close to just 1 year later after Scream, which is another film, that one deconstructing the slasher subgenre. But I mean, this breaks the fourth wall in a way that few films do, and particularly films that are bleak. Like, this is not a comedy, despite my memory confusing it with Cheap Thrills. This is not funny at all. This is a difficult watch. Um, and so to be able to break the fourth wall, but to still keep the tension, that is something masterful. And I mean, they're always teasing us, and they're showing us the expectations, and then they're inverting it nearly at every single moment. And like, but Bob has said numerous times that you could perceive this as tame. I totally understand where that's coming from, but I actually think it's the opposite, and they're kind of doing a less is more thing. They don't need to show you the son getting eviscerated, because like seeing the aftermath is even more powerful. And like, it is masterful in the way that it plays with sound. Like, you hear that, you hear a stabbing, the screams, as I said before, they really do rival the screams in like Midsummer. Like, I thought Midsummer, the opening sequence, was one of the most harrowing screams on scene. But rewatching this, it's like any scream, from Georgie Jr. panicking to the absolute grief wail in the 12-minute single shock aftermath of his death from the husband and his breakdown. It is uncomfortable. It is grief distilled on the screen. But I mean, it it's so it's so bizarre too, because it's like, what universe is this film even taking place in? Because obviously Paul is the one who's talking to the camera a lot, but then Peter, he is talking about like kind of philosophy and like the metaverse and fact and fiction. It's so self-referential and knowing. And it's like, if you just tinkered with something, you would say like, oh, it's too kind of wanky. Or you would if you were British. Probably if you're American, you might not call it wanky, but you get the idea. It would be too pretentious or gratuitous, but it just about works. And I mean, also another example of less is more is like, that they get the mother to strip, which like now is almost a trope or a cliche or is cheap. But I feel that at the time it wasn't so prevalent. I mean, obviously there was like gratuitous nudity in a lot of slashers beforehand, but you know the expectation is that you're going to see her strip, but you don't. You see her face, which makes it even more harrowing. And then, almost as if like they're, I don't know, they're just toying with the audience and expectations. There's a scene later where she's changing and like her underwear is practically see-through. So it's almost like, this is the bit that would have been titillating. Oh, you don't like it now, do you? After after we killed the son and we've put you through grief. So there's constantly things like that. And I just kind of marvel at how well done this is. Another thing, and I'll stop in a minute so that one of you can just jump in and respond to some of the things I'm saying. Otherwise, it will be an hour of me just making points. But I was thinking that, like, this works as an Austrian film set in 1997, but it was remade, with English language speaking actors. I believe in America, I'm not sure that, remaking it as a shot by shot remake actually works. Like, if you just think about the story, because the the mother and the father, when the invasion happens, they're very, very passive. I'm just not sure that I believe that, an American family is going to be like that. They're gonna get the goddamn gun out and march you out of the fucking house, out of the lake house. So I think, even though, yeah, we're saying this is a shot by shot remake, it will be harder to suspend disbelief, actually. And I feel that, there would have been a confrontation way earlier on. It would be like, get the fuck out of the lake house. Like it takes a certain personality to actually go through the whole egg ordeal anyway. But I mean, I guess that, we are primarily unboxing the 97 version. But yeah, I just feel there are too many things. You said it 10 years later, and you just think of the atmosphere and the hostility in America there too. It, yeah, I don't see it really working.
No.
Um, Another interesting thing, in terms of like the names, and I'm sure that you both, well, of course, you would have picked up on it, but there's confusion too because, not only are they Peter and Paul, obviously like two of Jesus's apostles, so I don't really for a minute believe that that is actually their name, but then sometimes they call each other Tom and Jerry, Beavis and Butthead, so it's like we could be any two people. Another layer, I found out that Anna and George, Michael Haneke in 9 of his films has called his protagonists Anna and George. So there's almost like another layer that it could happen to anyone. It almost doesn't matter what their names are. But I got more to say about this, but let me take a breather and see what you would like to respond to.
Well, see, if the movie was made today, then it would still be called Funny Games. It would be a lot different. It would be one of those situations where the tables would be turned, and so it, to me, it's like, okay, so if I was thinking about this, if you made the movie today, it would be a little bit different. It would not have the same approach. You couldn't do a shot by shot because it wouldn't make any sense in today's society. You'd have to show these guys get away with one of these invasions, and then they go to the next house, and it's the wrong house, you know. And so, and you could probably, you could, like, it's one of those movies, and only because I've seen, Don't Breathe, but uh have Stephen Lang, play, George, and and he's trying to keep everything calm and cool and collective because he knows that, hey, if I don't, then I'm gonna have to clean up a mess, because I'm gonna fuck somebody up. And then so it would be a totally different movie. At that point right there, the whole rewind thing could be very, very fun. And then you're getting into dark comedy,
Mm,
especially who has control of the remote. So I could see Funny Games being remade that way for today's audience.
Or even in a play. That would be in a very interesting play.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I could see that. Because the rewind thing is basically, if you did it in a play, you could just have all the players just stop, not even make a move, and have somebody says, "I'm just going to rewind this," you know, and then they would go back to saying, the lines previously, but then the action would be a little bit different, and so they'd have to stop it right before something like catastrophic happened, and go, no, 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 we're not going to do this. We're going to rewind it right now. Then it wouldn't even make any sound effects. Everyone just stops and they rewind, and then they go back to the lines and they change the action. So yeah, it could be a very interesting play. But that, to me, that would be like, if you wanted to remake this movie again, that's how you would do it, and it would definitely be a dark comedy at that point, because there's a lot of fun that you can have with the remote concept. Um,
yeah.
to me, I thought breaking the third wall was handled. I mean, the fourth wall was handled very subtly, and I liked that approach. It wasn't overhanded. Um, you know, um, to me, it's like, it was very. You didn't know when it was going to come, but after the first couple of times, you kind of knew. You know, um, wasn't as subtle as Blazing Saddles when Harvey Korman goes, "Why am I asking you?" You know, so that was because that came out of left field, but it was perfect. You know, it's one of those. I'm gonna break the fourth wall, and I'm gonna do it, and we're gonna do it big time later. But this time showing you that this is actually just a movie. I don't feel that what we were watching with Funny Games was just a movie. There was something else going on. And I'm going to throw it out there. There was something cosmic going on, unexplainable. And that's, to me, that's why I can't stop thinking about it, because there's no way to explain that scenario. Something else was going on. It leans to weird. It leans to horror.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would completely agree with that. The way that he screams, "Where's the remote?" That right there was like, it almost felt like there was a time limit too.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, "Where's the remote?" And then he scrambles, like trying to search for it. It's like, if this is your show, your movie, and you're running it, you're not scrambling, especially if you're these dudes. You're gonna kind of walk over and be like, "All right, like, shit, here we go." But no, he panics. Like, we see him panic. The only time he loses his cool the entire movie, or we see any emotion, is when something goes wrong. And so
Yeah.
that was very interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, to answer your question, for most American households, my husband and I are total pacifists, but even if this sort of thing were to happen on my quiet little street, it is a lot like what's the Tremors line? It's like, broke into the wrong goddamn rec room.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah. I can't speak for everyone out there, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they try to anticipate or give a reason for them having their guard down, and I guess, that subtle introduction beforehand, that it's like, look, they're meant to be friends
Yeah.
of their friends, so then you're gonna be a little bit more lenient. I mean, you're gonna think like, what kind of a bloody dickhead is my friend friends with? But yeah, you might let them get away with some stuff, but at the point where it's like, look, you
You
asked
gotta
for the
go.
eggs, I offered to wrap them, you dropped them, you ain't getting any more goddamn eggs. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
You know.
I had a question for you guys too. So through the movie, there's like a theme that I was seeing, and I wanted to know what your thoughts were on it. The wife, Anna, she asks these guys to go. They don't, obviously, right? Husband comes in, and she says, "Kick them out." He doesn't. He's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. What's going on here?" And the guys are like, "Your wife, she's totally crazy." He still doesn't kick them out. He's like, "What'd you do, babe?" Like, and then, and so we see that play out where she's like ready to tear his head off, but not in front of people, right? It's like, you can almost like see, the actress did such a great job. You can almost see her kind of like stuff that back in and be like, "We're going to talk about this later, motherfucker." Or like, "I can't even believe this shit is happening right now." That's kind of where I see her. And that was truly the last chance they had to do some damage to these guys, because the husband he was older, but he still had both his legs. That was the last moment where they could have really
Mm,
changed it, where he could have thrown them out and they could have beaten the ever loving shit out of them just because they were trespassing. Like,
mm,
maybe they weren't going to because it was so and so's friends. Maybe they weren't going to because they just wanted some eggs. There wasn't a real reason to go to that length. But if he had just listened to her, if they had fought back, like, what would have happened if he had just listened to her and been like, "Oh, something bad must have happened. Yeah, get the fuck out of my house." Like, what does that look like if he actually listened to his wife?
Yeah,
and then we see it later where he apologizes. Right? Did you guys see all of this too?
mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much to respond to here as well. I mean, of like goodness, like there's so much that I'm almost
I'm so,
finding myself tongue tied. Where do we go from here? I mean, if your wife, if your girlfriend is saying, you know, they got to go, then they got to go. You don't start being like, well, hang on a minute, let's have a discussion, because I think I'd like to hear the thoughts of this
Their
rando that I've
side.
never met in my life. Let me be the arbitrator for this one. But like I do wonder. Well, I in fact, I'm pretty sure that again, you couldn't do that in 2023, and I do just wonder if in 1997 and in Austria, I mean, it was almost certainly a more sexist and patriarchal society than it is now. Obviously, people know me. I'm not saying, "Hey, patriarchy's over now. Sexism doesn't exist." It still does, but I feel it was almost more accepted then, and it's like, if somebody says like, "Oh, your wife is out of control," you have to be like, "Whoa, settle down, darling." Like, but I mean, it was obvious that Michael Haneke, the director, knows that this is bullshit, because like the woman Anna, she is the only strong one in that family. She's like calling the shots, not just with like, trying to fight off Peter and Paul, but in terms of like running the household, calling people, organizing everything. Like George is about as spineless and pathetic as like they come, to be quite honest. Um, but yeah, for me, it's like, no, you kick them out. You tell them that they've got to go. Now, like, yeah, like if I'm trying to like run this through, if this actually happens to me, yeah, I'm not gonna pick up a golf club and hit them before they've attempted to attack me. It's like that isn't gonna play out very well if the cops show up. It's like, well, you smacked him in the head with with the golf
He
club,
just
but
wanted
it's
some
like if
eggs. Why did you hit him in
yeah,
the head with a golf club? Yeah.
yeah, but if they attack you, then at that point it becomes fair game. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like I mean, even when, and like this is clearly intentional, like even when George like attacks him, he just gives him a little slap on the face. It's like the weakest attack that was possible.
Mm-hmm.
So just like almost emphasizing how weak this guy is. It's like if he'd have done nothing, it would arguably have been less weak than to have just done a little slap on the face. But it I guess I should let Bob respond to that point, because I'm about to jump into something
Yeah.
else entirely. So I mean, what was your
I don't.
take on all of this?
Well, to me, that particular scene was, misogynistic power struggle. It was George trying to show some type of masculinity at that point. That's what I saw, and it obviously didn't work. It worked in Peter and Paul's favor, because they relied on that expectation to remain in the house. So that, and obviously the director knew what he was doing, and in part of the story saying, hey, this is how they maintain control, is you know because of this power struggle that's kind of lopsided. And that was the impression that I got off of it. you know Now, if this we always tend to compare these things to, hey, what's going on today, what's happening in the world right now, how is this going to affect us? I know in Texas, and I'm sure it's like this in other states, that if you have people that you do not know, that not related to, that you're totally not acquainted with, that are in your house and they do not leave, you can forcibly remove them from your property. Okay. If you hurt them, then they can press charges on you. Those charges may or may not stick, depending on the level that you go to hurt them. But you can forcibly remove people from your home. If you believe that that person is in your house to steal or to cause harm, then from what I've been told, and if I'm wrong, then someone please correct me. But you can kill them in your house. If you
Yeah.
believe that they're to cause harm, I believe that's been in effect for a long, long time. I don't know how things are in Austria. I don't live there. I have no idea what their laws are. But these two gentlemen, if I came to the point to where I believed if they were in my house and I believed that they were about to cause me physical harm, I will fuck them up.
Yeah.
So that would be, if you remade this movie now, that would be a totally different movie because it would not be very realistic. Especially showing it there, it would be more realistic to have the George take the golf club back and bash somebody in the head with it and say, "Get the fuck out of my house,"
Yeah.
you know. And so that could be that would probably be what would happen now, you know. But that scene, I mean, that to me that was masterfully done because that's how they got in the house. At that point right there, if George would have put in any effort to make him leave, they would have had to go because they'd have realized, okay, we don't have the upper hand here. We have to leave.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that does
I
that make sense?
it does, and like I'm again thinking about like, well, how would this play out? In my house, either in Japan or in the UK, and like it wouldn't get very far because it's like, don't you dare step into my house uninvited. If you want
Mm-hmm.
eggs, you wait outside. You're not
Right.
coming in. What the hell? So, like, I guess, like, you've got not just rural, but lakeside holiday Austria, and so your guard is down a bit, not just like holiday, but this is like rich, like kind of upper
Mm-hmm.
class Austria. You don't expect people like that, and I suppose also like dressed as if they're here for a little yachting holiday to be like that. But I mean, there was something very uncomfortable, and like I don't know if you noticed too, but like Peter kept getting nearer to Anna, but they did this weird thing where he was only closer when the camera came back, so you never saw him really move closer towards her. But there was something very creepy about that. But yeah, it was difficult at times to suspend disbelief because Anna is, on one hand, a very strong, no nonsense person, but then she's letting them get away with that. And as I say, the only justification is her thinking it's her friend's friends. But I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
There were some limits. I mean, as I say, everything that is done here is done deliberately. Haneke is fucking with us. Like, part of the funny game is him playing a game with us. He's
Mm-hmm.
messing with our expectations, and he's deliberately making them make stupid decisions. Perhaps the most frustrating of all is when we see her other friends on the boat. At that point, you could say something subtly, or to be honest, there's three of them on the boat. You could say, "This guy is holding me hostage, get help." Either they can get off the boat and they can beat the shit out of him
Mm-hmm.
because he's now massively outnumbered, or they can jet off somewhere. They've got a phone, they can alert the authorities. So that was deliberately frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
The
But it
but
also,
inaction.
there was another point too when I was watching the movie, probably about right before it started getting really to where it started playing with my emotions. That I thought, you know what? I don't really care for rich people, so these pathetic fucking losers get every ounce of pain that they have coming to them because they don't know how to do anything for themselves. They gonna go yachting and have all this, it's all posh, and you're interfering with our family time, and they're having their friends and things like that. And there was just a part of me that's like, after George got hit in the knee, I'm like, you deserve it. You deserve it, you weak fuck. That was my initial impression. I can't stop thinking about that. I have a feeling that Haneke, he knew the people were going to feel that way too, and so he stripped that from me when he killed the kid. And I'm like, you fuck. Now I care about these people, you know? And so, yeah, there's, I don't know, this almost like an interactive movie, you know, because I mean, he's forcing you to go through these emotions. And I mean, and for some people, you know, like me, I felt there was like, you know, a lot of apathy there because I don't relate to those kind of people, you know. I don't fit in with that. If I go to somebody's house who, you know, makes, you know, $1 million or, you know, a year or something like that, I don't touch shit because I'm gonna break it and I can't afford it. So I'm the type of guy who just sits there and goes, "Oh, no, 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 a plastic cup will be fine, thank you. I don't need a glass that costs more than what I made last month." So yeah, that's just me. That's how I am, um, because I'm just not of that world.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, my personal reaction wasn't as far as to be like when George gets his knee done in, good, you deserved it. Like you know, I don't have hatred for the rich on that level. You know, like we're all born into different circumstances. I'm sure that he didn't kind of choose for that to happen, even though he's like a man of privilege. But I mean,
It felt like
goodness.
inaction was a major theme
Oh
here.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Hmm.
just the ability to act. Because, like, if I were to watch this movie again, and I want to, because now I'm doing it, you know, now after seeing the remote, it's like now I want to, now I really need to. Um, and the remake too. I want to see the remake. But I almost want to count how many times someone could have fought back and didn't,
Mm,
because it's not just about not listening to his wife. It's not just about, like, you know, watching these guys come into your house and saying, "Oh, okay, well, you need to go. Sorry." You know, like, it's like all calm and everything. You gentlemen need to go. I don't remember quite how he says it, but it's something along those lines, right? And so, yeah, just the inaction. It's like it is every single scene. Someone fails to act until they are really pushed to it. Basically, until the kid is involved. As soon as the kid gets involved, then we kind of start to see some fight back. But and the kid is awesome. Like, that's honestly like the saddest part of the movie is when the kid gets it. It's like he's throwing himself at these guys. He is tiny. He is half their size. He is half their weight, if that. And he is
Hmm.
the one that is animalistic, throwing himself at these guys and screaming and clawing. He seems to be the only one who gets it.
yeah,
Yeah, and then he also runs fast. It took Anna so long to run. That was the thing that drove me nuts. Is there she
yeah.
is, like, blow drying the battery and, like, getting clothes on and stuff. And it's like the way she looked at her husband during that too was like, "Is this good enough, you motherfucker?" So, like, the kid runs. That's awesome. Like, the kid is, like, stripping off wet clothes and he's, like, climbing up shit. I love the kid. And
He
so,
found
yeah,
the shotgun
he
and knew
found
how
the
to use it.
shotgun. He's the only character that was or the only character that was held hostage out of this family that was like, "I'm gonna go get them." He was the only one that was on the offense. Like, I liked him. I'm sorry, that was my rant. That
Yeah,
was my rant, Bob. Like, it's like I cared when they killed the kid, but for different reasons. Because that was the one that was gonna get them out of this shit. Like,
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And there's so many moments, as you say, where they could have fought back, and it's like even when they were left
yeah,
on their own, I mean, they could have like barricaded the house. They could have looked like, what kind of weapons do we have? Because there's only, there's only two of those guys. Like, what can we make that's flammable?
get a
Like, they
hammer.
they could have done some damage. Yeah,
A fucking screwdriver. Like, something. Come on now.
yeah,
It's like they. It was obvious they were going to come back.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so to me, it was like, have these, did Home Alone already come out?
yeah, yeah. Like,
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Home
So,
Alone was early 90s.
yeah. So it's like, didn't y'all see Home Alone? Get your house ready. They're coming back.
Yeah,
Don't be stupid. They're going to come back because you're a witness. They're not just going to leave. They're playing a funny game with you. They're still doing a funny game. They're not going to leave. Get your house ready. Home Alone your house. Okay.
Yeah.
To me, that's what I would do. I would Home Alone my house. If they left, I'd be like, you know what? I'm a witness. They're coming back. I'm Home Alone in my house. Okay.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario is that I accidentally, set one of my own booby traps on myself. That's the worst case scenario, right? Okay. So I get burned with a hot iron, but, if they don't come back. And then, I would definitely be beating on neighbors' doors. I would, do everything I can to, I wouldn't, like, I'm going to blow dry a phone.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh
Yeah.
no, no,
You never heard of like a bag of rice, for
Yeah.
example?
or
You know?
yeah. I mean, it's like when they kill the dog. It's like, don't you set the house on fire when they kill the dog?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That would have been once I realized they had killed the dog.
Oh
Okay,
yeah, it's on.
it's game over.
It's
Yeah,
like this is no longer a strange situation. This is this is
yeah.
metal now.
They had opportunity. They were unprepared and very passive. And I understand the power that the grief has. They were in shock.
Yeah.
They never expected this to happen, and it basically it paralyzed them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's you hit the nail on the head. I think that's absolutely what that scene is supposed to show, is like how they almost had to do something mundane because they couldn't think.
Right. But before that, they had ample opportunity.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And Bob, when you said that, like, you think there's something cosmic going on, there was something about the way that you said that, and we were talking about remakes, and I thought, I want to see not necessarily a remake, because, like, I think, this wouldn't be remade, this would be more reimagined, or would be
Mm-hmm.
riffing on
Right.
it. What I really want to see and what I think would be perfect is Benson and Moorhead doing
Yeah.
a reimagining of this,
Yeah.
because particularly when you have like the cosmic, the time, the being able to rewind, this is so in their wheelhouse. This is the kind of thing that they're playing with, and I think they could do it justice, and they could create something really interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
that is what I want to see.
They'd have to
In
do the rewind scene early. It had to be first act, and it would have to
Yeah,
be like at the previous house,
yeah, because
to
I
where you'd establish that you can do this.
Yes.
yeah
So now it's
I
no longer weird.
like, obviously they just threw the rewind in and they did it once, but I'm interested in a universe or a film where we explore that. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you rewind, obviously the other guy remembers because he got to counter it. But does everyone, when it's rewound, does everyone remember? Is it just like one person? Um, and then if you're all remembering, then you're gonna have like the battle for the remote. I can only assume that it was only Paul who had awareness that he'd rewound, because
Mm-hmm.
if not, then what's to stop? Would you realize that's a feature? Like, Anna's just going to be going for the remote all the time. You don't need to fight anything. You just need to get the remote. You need to rewind as far as you can.
I think that if you did it like that, especially at Benson Moorhead, is had to be an observation that if you witness someone use the remote, then you have knowledge that the remote works. It affects other people who don't witness it. So the idea is if you know the remote and you know about it, like, let's say that, Paul, he knows about the remote. He does it at a point to where something happens and he doesn't like the outcome. So we know about it, but someone else saw it,
Yeah.
and
And I,
that person did not die. They were unknown, and now they have awareness of it. And so they're constantly fighting for the remote, which would make everyone else aware that, hey, this remote does something.
yeah.
What does it do?
And
Because they're
Yeah.
fighting for this fucking remote, and there's no
And
reason to be
I,
fighting for it. Yeah.
I feel as well it would ultimately have to go to a place where you rewind to a point that you're satisfied with, and then you destroy the remote. That has to be like the conclusion at some point, that you take the remote out. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as we like to do, just as a hypothetical, imagine you're in Anna's situation. You've killed the guy, then it's rewound, but you have awareness of the remote. If you get the remote, how far are you rewinding? Are you rewinding to just like, okay, Peter is dead? Or are you trying to rewind all the way back so that your son isn't dead? Like, probably with like the parental bond. Or like, how far can we go? Can you rewind to when they turn up at the lake house? Is there like a geographical limit to this? Can you just rewind so that you never went to the lake house? That's what I'd want to know too. And I wonder how far back one would go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I wonder if that plays into like the hurriedness, like the way that he says,
Mm,
"Find the remote," because it also doesn't matter which remote. I thought that was very peculiar. It's like, so in any
yeah.
house, can he just use the remote? Is that part of
Yeah.
what happens in his world? Because it's not on him. I think that would also add another level. That's a question to ask the next director who reimagines this: is does he have his own remote, or is it any remote?
Yeah. Yeah. Because if
Yeah.
you knew that any remote would work, or you would have a remote, why does he have to go to get the remote? It's almost like he has knowledge of it only in that moment. But if Michael Haneke was like watching this, it's like he'd probably just be laughing anyway, because it's all about messing with you anyway. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
just like they don't give any reason as to why they're doing this. It's like there's no, you're looking for a deeper meaning. There just was a remote and he could wind back, and that's what he did. And obviously I fucked with you because you're talking about it for so long.
Mm-hmm. To me, that and the fact that they've done this before, it seems like that Peter and Paul are, or at least Peter is aware, or maybe it's Paul, the one who grabbed the remote. I told you I was going to get their names mixed around.
Yeah, that
Uh,
one's Paul.
that's Paul. So Paul, when he grabs the remote, he's aware of this. There's something else that he says when he gives them the bet, and they talk about the time, and so it's and do you want it? Basically, he was like, "Hey, let's go ahead and finish the bet," you know. And Peter's like, "Well," he goes, "Now," no, I think it was Peter was like, "Hey, well, let's just do this now." And he's like, "No, we haven't reached feature film length."
Yeah, that's right.
So
Yeah.
they are quite aware that they're in a movie,
Yeah.
and so that's, to me, that was just another faucet, and I'm like, that's putting a weird fiction spin on this,
Mm-hmm.
because the remote thing really kind of threw me for a loop, because I was like, oh fuck, well, you can rewind this motherfucker,
Yeah.
really, but only Paul knew about it, and to me, that's cosmic,
Oh,
that's fucking with the
but
universe.
Peter must know. It's Paul and Peter, right? Yeah. Tubby.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Peter.
Yeah,
Peter.
Tubby.
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 Peter must know about it too, though, because on the boat, he's talking about, metaphysics. And
Mm.
so it's got it.
Right.
That's almost like, is that a human saying, why are we here? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not so much who are these people, but what are these people, in that they're in here and they're controlling things. And so did they sneak into a movie, and are they killing the characters? We were about to just watch them have a normal family summer vacation, and we were just going to go for a real pleasant ride. And then these things, these characters, these entities snuck in somehow. And that's what they do.
Yeah, that's, to me, okay. Yeah, you've hit on something there. It's like Funny Games was probably another film, and these two guys who are watching this film have entered the film,
Yeah.
and they're like, oh well, look, there's some neighbors. Well, I mean, of course, yeah, there's the neighbors. We're with them
Mm-hmm.
because we're in the film. We're going to make ourselves part of the story,
Yeah.
and we're going to do what we want to with these characters, and they literally do. So it's like, there's another layer
Oh,
that
yeah.
is now becoming evident to me, that, and when you, thanks to Mackenzie bringing this up, that's like, okay, now it's improving my impression of the movie.
There are rules that they have to follow too, like the way that the gloves have to stay on, and this, they ask Paul, the people on the yacht, the yachters, whatever we call them, they're like, hey, aren't you cold in your shorts? And he goes, I have eczema. So I think we can also maybe think that they're dressed inappropriately for where they are, for the season, possibly, right? Because now,
Mm-hmm.
that being said, I am kind of rethinking this theory because Anna is wearing like a sundress.
Mm.
So maybe not, but the way that the gloves are on and the way that, like, he's very conscientious that he has to wear these very small shorts, like, it's like, this is almost what they have to wear. They almost have their own set of rules they have to follow. Because in none of this are they concerned about getting caught. So why keep the gloves on? It's their costume.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. Am I hit?
Yeah, I mean, you're hitting on something because I mean, you're right. They're not concerned about being caught.
Not at all.
Um, and matter of fact, I mean, they leave. They fucking leave the house.
Yeah. Where do they
You
go?
know? Yeah, exactly. Where did they go? And to me, I feel like that they basically went outside and made it sound like they were leaving. They went outside and stood around and watched shit unfold and said,
Yeah.
"Okay, now this is enough time. We've reached feature film length,
Yeah.
and
They just
so
needed
now
time to
we
go
need
by.
we need to end the story, and we're gonna collapse time and make the sun come up so we can take Anna out on a boat."
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, these guys are manipulating. This whole movie's been just a big fucking manipulation. Damn it,
Are
I
they
knew it.
bored? That's my next. Are they bored with this role that they're playing?
Well, I mean, at some point, George asks them, "Why are you doing this?" And the answer is simply, "Why not?"
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they get rid of Anna a whole hour early.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's layers in this thing that the more you think about it, the deeper you get. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you were to make this film, or if you were to have made it in 1997, is there actually anything that you would change? Because for me, for what it is, I think it's pretty tight. We might not like a lot of the decisions from the characters, but as a deconstruction of the home invasion movie and for achieving the objectives, it's difficult to find something that I would actually change.
Yeah, I would agree with that if it made in '97.
Yeah.
Considering the state of the world and things like that. The movie this is not a it was not a B title film. This is an auteur doing cinema, and so and that's why I said I wish I'd have seen it then, because it'd have been one of those movies that I'd be like, have you seen Funny Games? I mean, because I would have probably become more obsessed with it. You know, it probably would have it could have tempered me to write something very science fictiony. You know, um, which I usually tend to shy away from. You know, um, because I don't like dealing with those bigger concepts. But seeing that you can handle a bigger concept in 108-minute film, you're asking. It's like you're asking a lot of questions, and you're not providing any answers. You're just showing what happens. I like that.
There's something also behind the pillowcase over the boy's head. That's the cover.
Yeah, yeah. The old game of kitten in the bag, I believe they call it.
Yeah. What do you guys think that is, like, supposed to represent? Because it's just that's on the cover. Why did they pick that for the cover?
Hmm.
Or I guess you call it the thumbnail or whatever now. Anyway, yeah, when you click on the movie.
Hmm. Well, I mean, it's probably the cover that's on the Criterion edition, and so funny games, pulling the wool over your eyes. You know, instead of having your eyes open, he pulled the wool over your eyes.
You think it's that easy? Do you think
Well,
there's
I mean, we watched the film. I mean, you know, I think it was pretty easy. I would have
No.
probably,
No, I mean
I mean, I would have probably had never watched this film without thinking what it was about until for this. So I mean, I'm glad I did.
I guess I'm speaking more to like the message behind it. It's like, is there, by picking that, like where he's blinded. Maybe I'm not saying this correct. Maybe I'm not saying this very well, but it's like he's blinded, and we're right now talking about how characters are possibly part of like a different universe almost, and have traversed into this film. Do you think that plays into it at all? Like it feels like there is more going on the way that it's presented with like, I'm staring at it right now. Just it's on Prime Video, and that's like the whole picture is the kid's head is covered in the pillowcase, and then this guy is sitting next to him, and so I just feel like there was something hidden. Like something hidden in the imagery here to kind of speak about how these two guys don't belong and how we can't see that until a certain point.
Yeah, this is
Uh,
not something that I've considered up until this point. But I mean, of course, initially they, cover his head because his mother is about to strip. And, like, I mean, throughout both Peter and Paul, they try to have this faux politeness. They pretend that they're reasonable and, you know, Paul talks in this typical sociopathic way of like, I don't understand what's going on. There's a misunderstanding. We just want eggs. Why are you being unreasonable? Why did he hit me? I'm just your friend. We're on first name basis. What is happening here? So, this is another example of like pretending that they have some morals or some standards, or oh, it would be inappropriate for him to see his mother stripping. um, but I wonder too, like, yeah, like it feels like this must be some sort of metaphor that there are things in the film that we're not seeing. We are being shielded to a point. It everything isn't as it seems. I mean, that could be like kind of part of the explanation. I think too it's like a very iconic and striking image. I mean, there isn't much more, if you think about the film, that you could have that would just like kind of represent it or be like a moment. Like the only other thing you could do, and it's certainly not going to be as over horror, is have like some broken eggs. I
mm-hmm.
feel that that's the only other thing you could do. And so I wonder, like, if marketing considerations came into play as well. It is, as we say, for quite less is more horror. That is the most overt thing you could do. Apart from, like, I don't know, have a television on and like a pair of feet and blood splatter on the wall. But I think that would be too overt. So yeah, but it does encapsulate everything, that things are being hidden from us. We can't see it all. We're kind of captive as well, and we're complicit, even though we're being held there against our will. As I said, the only person who really directly breaks the fourth wall is Paul, but there is one bit where George Jr., the father, he asks, like, why are you doing this? And it just for a moment, there's some ambiguity as to whether is he talking to Paul or is he talking to us? Why are we continuing to let this happen? Why are we continuing to watch? So we are complicit in this to a point. He's asking us for help. We have the remote. We can wind back so that it never happened.
Yeah. This this film is. I knew it was going to be. I knew this was going to be deep, but man, it's like we're getting deep. We're getting into the deepness. There's a lot. There's a lot to this. And now I want to see the remake just to see if there's any. I know it's like shot for shot, but I mean, obviously, you know, there has to be something different. I mean, have you ever seen a remake?
I don't think that I have, but as I say, it is literally in the same way that Quarantine and Wreck are. It's meant to be shot for shot. But I'm interested in watching the remake because obviously this is a film that can benefit from multiple viewings. So if I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
view it again, why not view the other version?
Right. Yeah, and plus, what little bit I've read about the remake is that Tim Roth's characters, he plays pretty much the same as the original actor. He doesn't deviate from that. Michael Pitt, I think, is in there. He was in Boardwalk Empire. He's really good, and that's another reason why I wanted to see, you know, that because just to see different actors do the same role, just see how they actually do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are other things that we could talk about, like, of course, like the soundtrack, the contrast between the orchestral and the kind of extreme metal that really hits you the first time, like, oh shit, you know. But are there any scenes or are there any specific elements of the story that you want to get into before we wrap up? Is there something that we've missed that you feel it's pertinent we discuss?
No, I feel like we really got through a lot. Definitely all of the things that I kind of bookmarked as like, this was odd. I can't wait to talk about this.
Yeah, yeah. Is it the same for you, Bob?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I didn't want to go through and do a bit, a beat by beat. To me, I think these are a lot funner when we do them as like a discussion, like, hey, this is what I thought was weird about it,
Yeah,
and there's a lot going on. Um, and in a way, like I said, if I'm going out on a limb on this, then yeah, call me crazy, but I feel like that there was something definitely cosmic in there. A
yeah,
reimagining, a Benson and Moorhead reimagining of this would be fantastic. Um, even a similar type story, but that's rights and all that kind of stuff, and but if it was ever hey, we want to remake Funny Games, then I'd be like sending emails to somebody, just 2 words: Benson Moorhead. Benson and
yeah.
Moorhead. 3 words: Benson and Moorhead. Dude, just get them. They'll do it. Trust me. Or maybe they won't do it. They'll be like, "No, we ain't catching that with a 10-foot pole."
Yeah. Well, what about, do you have any story lessons or takeaways, or is this something that perhaps has inspired your own writing or ideas? I'm just wondering any creative takeaways or possibilities that you have having watched this.
That's a tough question because I've thought a lot about the remote scene, and I feel like if this was something that I was editing, if this was something that I was looking at in written form, and I had the guy just all of a sudden say, "Where's the remote?" I'd be all over that and be like, "Is this part of the universe? Do we need to know about this sooner?" But then it kind of washes over you, and it's like, "This is perfect. The way that this happened. This is perfect." So, because the confusion that lands is needed for the story. Like I feel like that hit is necessary. And so while it gave me pause and it kind of like freaked out my brain a little bit of like, we needed this so much earlier. We need to know more about the universe. We needed to world build better. That's not the case. This was exactly when it needed to happen. So it's kind of inspired a little bit of like of like chaos almost, you know? It's like, yeah, let this happen 75% of the way through.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah, I felt the same way. We can sit there and say, what if, what if, what if, but the universe is already skewed in this thing because they've broken the fourth
Right.
wall. So Paul has already, he's smirked at us, he's winked at us,
That's true.
he's done, so he's already we don't know the extent of how broken this universe is.
Right.
How much, I feel like this is like, it's a home invasion movie, but it's also a movie invasion movie. It's like
Yeah.
these guys have invaded this movie. And this was we were the intention was for us to see a different film,
Mm-hmm.
but this is the film that we got because these two guys have attacked the film.
Yeah.
It's it's
The
it's
music
like,
change in the beginning too. The music change, they
yeah,
hijack. It happens quick.
yeah. And so to me, a story takeaway would be, you know, like you said, if you've introduced some subtle weird shit that has gone in there, you can kind of go full throttle weird at 75%,
Yeah.
and probably not lose your audience.
Yeah.
Except for those people like, well, why did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
And then why did this happen? And why is the sky blue? And why is that? And what does that mean? And it's like, sometimes weird fucking shit happens.
Yeah.
Weird deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. Is that going to be the title of this episode? Sometimes weird fucking shit happens.
Yeah, for me, like I'm just a big fan of minimalism, like minimalist location, minimalist characters. So for me, this is just really inspiring to show how much you can do in such a kind of tight and constrained space. I mean, this is why I'm a big fan of The Hateful Eight. This is why I enjoyed Max Booth's movie We Need to Do Something. I love stuff that just shows like the possibilities and how deep you can go. And I mean, I think sometimes, like with stories as well, like particularly I find with writing, I want to bear it. I want to strip it back to the bare essentials. So, yeah, to just see that, Michael Haneke, he made this like accomplished story in such a minimalist way. That is inspiring for me and makes me think about what can I do, with a similarly minimalist set. And I feel that's kind of it's always been an interest for me. It's almost where I started writing. I think I've had some stories and books where like I'm branching out a bit more, but I kind of like to go back to that. That's my comfort place. That's a happy horror place for me. These minimalist locations, almost plays, as you say, something that could just be set on the stage. So it's inspiration rather than a specific takeaway. But I'm very glad that we watched this film. I'm very glad that we unboxed it. I think Bob has said numerous times before, when we unbox something, we pretty much come away liking it even more, or at least having a richer appreciate. I can't even say it. Appreciation for what for what we've just witnessed. And yeah, I'm very impressed with Funny Games, but it wasn't a light watch. It wasn't a comedy, and I apologize for, if you want a light watch, watch this
I
one.
want to laugh a little.
No, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. When I realized, I did wonder about sending up a follow-up email, and I don't know. Let's just see what happens. Let's see how you react to this.
Honestly, now I cannot wait to read your book if this is one of the comps. So I'm really excited to read House of Bad Memories. Did I get the name right?
You did,
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
Mm-hmm.
so
yeah.
excited. It's gonna be great. I know it.
Yeah. And I only sent it to Mackenzie a few days ago. If people are wondering, wait, what? She hasn't read it? Yeah, I didn't send it. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. It'll be interesting. Let's see what Mackenzie Kiera says. The brutal editor, but also kind. So you can't edit this one. I mean, you could try, but it's out.
I'm just gonna tell you it's great. Like you'll be like, "Hey, what'd you think?" I'll be like, "It's great. It's perfect. It's out in the world. That's what it needs to be. Like if it's out in the world, then it's great and it's perfect."
Yeah. Wow. All right. Do either of you have any final thoughts to end the episode?
No.
No, I'm all set.
No, just a very.
Thanks.
I mean,
Thanks for this lighthearted movie. It was really exciting.
Yeah. It's very, very lighthearted.
Thank you for having me on, guys. It's been so wonderful to be here back with you.
Yeah, this has been an absolute pleasure. And viewers and listeners, catch me and possibly Bob. We haven't actually discussed whether he's in the next episode. I hope he will be, but it's getting a little late for him. So next episode, as part of the House of Bad Memories, This is Horror Podcast Weekend, is with the audiobook narrator Aubrey Parsons. So get ready for that. But until next time, take care of yourselves, be good to one another, read horror, keep on writing, and have a great day.